Hello, and welcome to another installment of Mr. Luna's Backyard Science, this case held in the front yard. What we're going to talk about today is matter, and how everything matters and everything has matter. And a simple definition of matter is anything that takes up space. And in which case, anything that takes up space means it has to have two qualities: definite mass and also definite volume. How we can classify matter. Again, matter is anything that takes up space. Definite mass, definite volume. Doesn't mean anything about the shape. If it's a definite shape, it's a solid. If it takes up the shape of its container, but you can still move it around, it's a liquid. If it takes up the entire space, it's a gas. So those are the three states of matter. Well, in which case, if we want to start separating things, we can separate it into two different ways. As you can see here, we have a mixture and we have a pure substance. Now, a pure substance is referring to our periodic table, or a combination of the periodic table. For example, like a compound, salt, or sugar. Another compound would be iron. So if we want to remove iron, for example, like the mud that I had outside, I told you I put iron fillings in there. I can use a magnet. I separated it physically. And in which case, one of the characteristics that iron has is it's magnetic, and I separate it and it's an element, meaning it's in its purest form. Another way we can separate things out is, for example, like sugar and water, we can use a filtration kit. And a filtration system or a distillation kit, we can separate those things out into its compounds. We can get salt, NaCl, or we can get sugar, which also has its own elemental combination. And those are considered compounds. But other things that are not like an elemental form or a compound form that is not its pure substance, those would fall into two different other types. You have a heterogeneous mixture and you have a homogeneous mixture. Now, a homogeneous mixture is blended in evenly. So think of it like tea. If I were to get water, I were to get whatever tea flavor that I want, and if I want to make it sweeter, I add sugar. And I blend it in really nicely, and it's all blended through and you can't see where the differences lie. That would be a homogeneous mixture. A heterogeneous mixture means we can see the differences, we can see the separation. So for example, like salad. Again, salad is the easiest way to go. If I don't like onions, get rid of it. Didn't change really much of the salad except I don't want onions. I still have my lettuce, I still have my tomatoes, I still have my croutons. Anything along those lines. Now, in which case a homogeneous mixture would be like a solution. Again, everything's blended in evenly. If it's not blended in evenly, if it starts to separate, that would be a suspension. And so this is how we're able to figure out what matter is, how to break up matter, how do we have a heterogeneous mixture, again, separated, easily removed. A homogeneous mixture is a solution blended in thoroughly. We have a compound like salt, NaCl, and we have elements like iron. Compounds and elements would be in its purest substance because the only way we can separate a compound would be through a chemical reaction. So for example, like electrolysis. Electrolysis is the breaking down of water where we can get hydrogen and oxygen. But we need to use energy in order to separate chemically. But if we're separating physically, we can do that simply by using filtration needs, we can do distillation kits, and we can even simply use magnets. And any other form of physical separation, again, can break us down from a mixture to a pure substance. But all of which is matter. And don't forget the three states of matter: solid, liquid, and gas. Later we'll talk about the fourth state, which would be plasma. And hopefully now you understand what matter is. Matter, again, as a refresher, is anything that takes up space. Anything that has definite mass and a definite volume. And in which case we can measure mass, we can measure volume, we get density. Those are physical characteristics. Chemical characteristics are what happens when you actually deal with chemistry. Dealing with energy, applying things and causing things to change from a chemical standpoint. Another example would be like element that turns purple. There's a reason why fireworks happen. Energy happens. And last we talked about mixtures, and in which case how we have a homogeneous mixture where we need to be able to separate things out using like filtration systems, filtration devices. We talked about heterogeneous mixtures. Heterogeneous can be as simple as, I don't like it, I remove it. We talked about pure substances and how pure substances and how compounds. Those compounds are on elemental form due to chemical reactions. And then if we break those down even more into its elemental point where we get pure elements, those pure elements will again have its own physical and chemical properties just like this individual. Thanks for watching. Hopefully you understand matter. If you have any questions, you know where to find me.